Coming up on this episode of Belief Hole.
For anybody who's wondering, why would we fake it? Why just say we couldn't get there? Well, the idea is we needed to beat the Russians to the moon. If we could present the idea that we did, then it would stop the space race.
Even if we did go, it seemed like it was a security deposit in case we didn't actually do it.
Yeah. There are over 10,000 missing tapes, weighing over a ton. So unlike Bill Nye said on some Geraldo interview to debunk this, well, they lost one tape.
Right.
It wasn't one tape, it was thousands of tapes.
All the science data, the telemetry data was missing. For NASA to come out and say that all the tapes were erased, I mean, it's incredible. Someone had to physically go and erase it.
It's not a cassette tape. You know, it's not like recording over your mixtape. Yeah, it wasn't a love mix someone made for you.
It gets better, too, because it's one of the reasons we haven't gone back since.
I haven't seen anything that indicates the telemetry data is even in existence. And as I said, even if we had it, we don't have the machines to play it back.
We wouldn't have the tape machines to play it back. You can't find a way to make a machine
that plays the tape that you once played? Yeah. Like, is it lost ancient Egyptian technology? No, it's like, yeah. It's like a 50s tape player.
It's absurd.
It just seems so outlandish.
Pretty hard to believe.
People bring up all the time, like, well, we never went back because why?
It's stupid. It's just a stupid thing up in the sky. Why would we go back?
Right, like we did it once, we planted our flag, we got in, we got out. But there are so many reasons why it would be good to start building bases on the moon.
Dude, yeah.
Think of how expensive it is for us to shoot rockets up. So if we can have a base where we can build rockets on the moon and not have to worry about breaking orbit, you can go so much farther, so much faster, and so much cheaper to different places.
Absolutely. Guess what, guys? We never went to the moon.
It has been decreed.
Jeremy, what do you think?
Yes, go for it.
Conspiracy.
Synchronicity. Sasquatch.
Donald Trump.
Alien races. Satanism in Hollywood. MK Ultra.
Pleiadians.
Mandela effect.
Close the door, Ed.
Jeremy, close your door!
Snowflakes.
Inner Earth. Disagreements.
My lab.
JFK assassination.
Flat Earth.
Corey Feld. Magicians are demons. Specters and dogs. Sleep paralysis. Muslim Islamicists. The gender spectrum. Yes. Alternative history. Shadow people.
Quiet, I'm trying to say words with the mouth.
Psilocybin. Sorcery. Poltergeist. Sulforaphane. Evolution. Is it real?
Skull and Bones.
Elf Towers.
I would never talk about it. That's old. Y2K.
Cover-ups. The Oklahoma City bombing. Vampire.
That really not necessary at all.
No, I was...
What was that? And who are you?
That was Jeremy's mouth. That was my sound effect from my mouth. Hello.
Wow, that's how you come on? You come on like that.
I thought it was helpful. I didn't even know if you could hear it. I thought it'd be buried under the...
I thought it was helpful.
Grow up, Jeremy.
Oh, sorry, neighbors. I mean, patrons.
Some of them might be our neighbors.
Some of them are.
Hello. Hi, guys. Welcome. Welcome back for another episode of Belief Hole. Episode 16. We made it.
20 minus 14, or 20 minus 4.
20 minus 4.
20
That's
minus
one way to
14.
look at it. Simple math. Moon landing, guys, finally. We're talking about one of the original American conspiracy theories today. Finally. This was actually an idea. I didn't realize this until I was looking at some friends of the show who wrote in, people that follow us and such, and someone suggested the moon. Just conspiracies related to the moon. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you probably have that'll come up later. Okay, but that's just weird. That's synchronistic because I just thought it made sense after the last episode to cover them. What did we cover last episode? Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar. Yeah. Good old Bobby.
So get ready to get your belief system shaken up if you're still believing that we went to the moon, because it doesn't look like we did.
Well, spoiler alert. You know, I try to take a skeptical tone on the show, but I feel like this topic, especially after watching some of the, for me personally, I'm not going to get into like all the different points of evidence we're going to get into later, but to me, definitely like the...
We're not going to talk about any of the evidence.
I mean, right now. Like in the very beginning. I
know what you mean.
But I just want to blow his load early. Yeah, but the body language of the astronauts after their return is just, I don't know how you can look at that and not be like, there is something wrong with them. Like they look so sad and dejected. To me, that's like, you're talking about the press conference after they came back. Yeah. That's one of the things.
There's a lot to go through with this one. This one is I never even thought about this one so much. I always kind of thought like, I always considered NASA to be pretty untruthful about a lot of things. And I just thought, yeah, it's possible that we didn't go, but it's possible that we did. But getting more into it, it's kind of unlikely. It seems very difficult to believe this story.
I'd love to believe it. Yeah, it hurts your heart a little bit. Yeah. You know, growing up as a kid, that's one of the...
American exceptionalism disintegrates in front of our eyes.
Arguably the greatest achievement of mankind, and it may not have happened. That's a tough pill.
Well, at least in the way that they told us.
Right.
I mean, I guess there's people, there's claims of going there now and stuff, but on manned missions, it doesn't seem very likely for a lot of different reasons.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of the crux.
There's a lot of reasons to lie about something like that too.
Yeah, and those reasons we will get into coming up. We got some good clips to drop, some interesting anecdotes and recordings to play. So, but Chris, do you want to give a quick description for those who've never heard of the moon landing?
Yeah, in case no one's ever heard of it, I'll just read this quick little bit I wrote out here. So between the years of 1969 and 1972, NASA sent 6 successful manned missions to the surface of the moon, allegedly. Since the years following, many strange inconsistencies and anomalies have come to light that sheds doubt on one of mankind's greatest achievements. So that's the biz nasty of today.
That's good.
That's what we're going to be discussing.
That was good. You read that really well. But I was thinking we should
Thanks, brother.
Good job.
We should read in the future, we should read things spooky. It's a spooky topic. I felt you were reading me kind of like an informative, like bedtime story kind of thing.
So it should have been like between the years.
Exactly.
Of 1969. Well, next time I'll do it that way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for taking my criticism with warmness.
Anyway, yeah.
You're talking a lot. Was that you?
No, I think that was you. That quote was from you.
You're talking a lot.
Anyway, yeah.
No, this is Jeremy. You're talking a lot, kid.
I don't know where that came from. That accent came from.
Well, do you guys want to mention anything before we go to the news? You want to talk about anything?
What, like just like how we're feeling?
Let's get into the show. Yeah, I think let's bypass that today and then move right into the content. And
I had all this saved up banter about the blizzard and how it looks like the moon outside. Yeah,
we don't need it. Yeah. We don't need it.
Yeah,
I saved up all this
banter.
Saved up all
this banter
really
in my mind.
I guess we should let people know we are doing it again remotely. So there's a little bit of weirdness going on, like that's kind of cutting in and out occasionally. So hopefully we'll keep the strangeness to ourselves.
John is only like 5 miles from here, but unfortunately, there's a massive blizzard. A lot of you are probably aware that has come through, and it's made it
in Ohio
travel nearly impossible. We had to walk through a lot of snow to get to the studio.
It's really hard to walk through snow. Like snow that's like a foot, 2 feet, or 3 feet.
And you look drunk. Everybody driving the car down the road is probably, I just feel like they look at me like I'm drunk. But
it's a lot easier to walk on the moon, I think, than to walk on the snow, just watching those videos.
Absolutely.
Or at least to walk on a sound stage that looks like it's on the moon. All right, so let's get into some news, Chris. Get some tasty bits.
You want to news it up?
Teaser.
All right.
Lay some tasty bits.
Don't do it.
We are valid news. Oh, that was really high. Why did I start in that range? I feel like that should just be a part of that news tag. We are valid news, just so that people know that we.
I think we should sing it at some point. We should just add it on like in a professionally silly way.
But we should do the whole news music a cappella too. So we have a bed track of like, what is that group? What's that annoying group?
Pentatonics.
We should make lyrics to it. Like, if you want to know the truth, we are valid news.
I like it.
We're so valid.
I got 2 short little news things today. And one of them relates kind of to our topic today. But the first one I wanted to bring up, this was actually sent in by a fan, and I'll mention her later in the show. But this is
what's her name?
I'll mention it later in the show when we get to the suspense. Will
suspense.
Keep you listening, Jeremy.
Okay.
I can't wait.
So this is a news article I grabbed. Thousands of Swedes are inserting microchips under their skin. I thought, John, maybe you might have heard this. You're definitely, that's kind of your area of conspiracy, is the whole chips and stuff. But so this is the kind of the beginning.
What? What are you talking about? That's my
you
whole
love
area
chips.
of
Don't label
expertise.
John with chips. That's his thing.
Yeah, what are you talking about? I'm not a fan of chips, but it's not my.
I just feel like that's more your realm of that you're interested in. You know, like people being chipped and tracked.
That's more your menage a trois, if you will.
That's not a
word.
Wow, way to pigeonhole me into a weird
menage a trois.
A weird, I think what you're trying to say is the social.
Yeah, what's happening in society.
I think what you're trying to say is, like the societal sort of walls that are being built around us, sort of.
Sure, that's what I meant.
Controlling us.
Yeah,
technology.
If that's what you mean.
Technology.
Anyway, so here
within.
this is.
How often do I talk about chips? Like, it make me sound like a crazy person.
No, that's not what I meant.
You're like, do you hear about the new chip technology?
I just meant like
out?
you would. I feel like this would be something you'd be more interested in than like an article on like that, like the Bigfoot, the guy shooting at what he thought was Bigfoot.
Bigfoot?
Probably a little less interesting to you.
John loves Bigfoot.
Right. Anyway, so this is the beginning of the article. I just got a little segment of it here.
You know what you should do is you should combine a news story about Bigfoot and chips, like they're chipping Bigfoot, and then we would both be interested in it.
Like they're tagging him? We finally discovered one, but he got away, but not before we chipped him.
I'm sure that happens. Right?
All right. Sorry.
Okay, all right. So
why don't you read the article?
All right. In Sweden, a country rich with technological advancement, thousands have had microchips inserted into their hands. The chips are designed to speed up users' daily routines and make their lives more convenient. Accessing their homes, offices, and gyms is as easy as swiping their hands against digital readers.
Ooh.
They also can be used to store emergency contact details, social media profiles, or e-tickets for events and rail journeys within Sweden. But it's like
convenience.
Dude, how much more convenient is it? Like I saw, like the image on the article is like a guy has his hand in front of a pin, like code pad to enter into his building. So how much more convenient is it to put your hand in front of
those old fangled keys,
or even a pin? It's like literally a pin.
Yeah, it's being sold to us like it's convenience. That's the whole thing with all this stuff. It's like it's so convenient. It's like but you're trading it for every ounce of privacy that you have left.
Yeah, they're training you for laziness, and we're getting used to the lack of privacy just with Facebook and all the face recognition software to activate your phone, all that stuff. It's kind of intentionally.
Dude, once you start convincing the public to insert foreign objects into them that can track it's just like that's...
I wouldn't mind having a microchip permanently. Remember that clip from, I wish you had that clip from Zeitgeist 1, where he's like, I wouldn't mind having a microchip permanently implanted in my arm.
Is that the guy that has those probes attached to his brain and that's like...
No, this was just
a microchip in his brain?
This was like it was an old news segment from like, I don't know, it must have been the early 2000s, and it was just a newscaster talking about how like kids get lost and sometimes people with Alzheimer's wander off. Wouldn't it be great to have... He's like, I wouldn't mind having a chip permanently implanted in my skin.
I mean, I think you can make more of an argument for...
I love being cattle. It's amazing.
I mean, I think you can make more of an argument for that sort of thing. Like, oh, you have a kid. I get why a parent would want to be like, well, if I put a chip in him... I'm not saying that I agree with that, but I can see why someone would think that. But to say like, well, I don't want to pull out a key card to put in front of a plate. I want to put my hand in front of the plate.
What if you lose your key card? You're screwed for life.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Might as well implant it in your body.
Anyway, I thought...
Make sure your kids keep their phone on them. No, I get that, but that's not a good enough reason. It's just not, because I don't trust the people that are making that shit.
There is a related note to that, Chris. I heard recently about a company. It's a big tech company, and I think it's overseas somewhere where it's maybe a manufacturing branch of the company. I don't remember if it's Apple or something, but that's what they're doing for the employees, so that they can swipe in, and so if they want to buy goods from the vending machine, they can swipe their hand.
So ridiculous.
Yeah, but they're all opting in. They're all excited about it.
Yeah, because they're cattle. They're sheep, and I feel bad for them, but it's just like, man, God, just give away I just don't. I guess if you've never heard about any of this stuff and you just trust everything.
Right, it just sounds nice.
Yeah, I get it.
It sounds cool and easy.
You can't have a lot of, I don't know. Hopefully there's no one listening that really wants to be microchipped.
Yeah, they're like, unsubscribe.
Kind of doubt it. Kind of in the wrong place.
I'm out of this. Chris, okay, that was an interesting article.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting.
Good job.
Well, actually, I had heard like a recent article, because I'm super on top of the chipping.
It's your thing, man.
It's my thing. I did hear that, like, I don't know, I read it like a month ago, how they're trying to, something to do with banking in the U.S., and they're pushing for it kind of hard again.
You mean for chips? Like chips for banking?
Yeah. Yes.
That makes sense.
Can we do a poll for our listeners who thinks that the RFID chip in your credit card is more convenient and faster than the swipe? I mean, it's, you know what I'm talking about? Like, it's easier, and you stick it in, you wait, it beeps angrily at you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's not
It's supposed to be more secure is the idea.
Yeah, but what does that even mean? How does that have to be more secure? It's like you're swiping a card that tells exactly all the details of that store transaction. What it is more... I'm sure it gives more data on probably like your location and, all the things that we don't need to be telling them anyways.
Right.
But yeah, it's certainly not more convenient. It takes longer.
It's not more secure because you can buy on the dark web, I've been told, like a reader that can read it from, if you're in proximity, it can pick up from the chip that has the signal to be activated and give the information of your credit card. Whereas if you just have a swipe, it doesn't do that. So
probably less secure.
It was billed to us when I was working at Starbucks. Well, when I was working more there at Starbucks, it was coming in and we were getting these new systems, and they said it'll be more, and this is what we told customers too. This is what we were told, corporate was telling us, and that it's going to be more secure for the customer.
Right.
Well, of course they're going to say that.
The thing is, it's kind of funny because most of these places you go where you put the chip in, you can just hit a button that bypasses your pins. You don't even have to put a pin in, which I didn't know until Jeremy showed me that.
It says type in pin or enter for alternative method, and you hit enter, and then it just runs.
So what's that called, Jeremy? It's called
a security theater.
Yes, where you're not really helping you being more secure, but it appears to be.
It gives confidence to the consumer. So that's the whole purpose, is you feel safer, but it's not actually doing anything.
Yeah.
Does anyone actually even feel safer anyways? It's just like, no. I mean, who? Who feels safer? Right? Like, they said the chip makes us safer. Like, who believes that?
So if it doesn't make you safer,
propaganda.
Doesn't make you safer, and it's not more convenient, then it's just a way to get more
data collection. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's all crazy.
Fun stuff.
Okay, Chris, what's your next news clip?
Okay, next news clip. This kind of, relates a little bit to our topic today, as you will see.
You always sound like a third grade teacher.
No, every time I go to read.
You will soon see.
Yes, this will be our topic.
What was that, the clip?
Would you like it again?
Yeah, I didn't really catch it. I did not.
Babality? Is that a Mortal Kombat reference?
No, it's like Chris was screwing up when he was reading.
Oh, cool. That's why you can't understand what he's saying.
Thanks for replaying that while I'm reading another thing.
Go for it, Chris.
Okay, so this is the article here. Mysterious floating package sparks bomb scare. Turns out to be NASA experiment. A group of solar panel employees spotted the box when it floated to the ground at a solar panel field affiliated with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection off of New Road in South Brunswick at around noon. When the employees approached the package, they discovered a handwritten message attached to the outside of it. Quote, NASA Atmospheric Research Instrument, all caps, not a bomb, exclamation point. If found, please call, and then they took out the number. If this lands near the president, we at NASA wish him a great round of golf. And this is a handwritten message. What? Like, who's not going to think this is like something?
So these things were dropping out of the sky? They were like a NASA test?
Yeah, different. Well, I think there's 4 still out there, but I think a few have come down different places around the country.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a NASA test, atmospheric weather, whatever. But it had this handwritten message basically saying, hey, this isn't a bomb, handwritten.
That's just what a bomber would say.
And then it has a weird thing about wishing the president a good golf game. You know?
Right.
Like, what? Yeah.
Well, it's just beyond cheesy, frankly.
Yeah, I just thought it was poor judgment on NASA's part.
Frankly. Yeah, because that's what I would write if I sent a bomb to somebody. I would say, "Don't worry, it's not a bomb. Please open at your leisure."
Right, at your leisure.
At your leisure.
Yeah, I thought that was great. Well, I guess it was like some summer intern kid who just decided to add like his own messages onto these things, and I guess they were making noises too. So the guy that
sounded like a bomb.
Guy that called the police was like, "Yeah, it says it's not a bomb, but it's
like
it's making like whining noises and ticking noises." So
what was the experiment?
It was just like atmospheric pressure, weather. Okay. It's a weather balloon, like Roswell.
Right.
Wink.
Winky.
Anyway, those are the stories for today. I hope you found them interesting.
Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Those are great stories. I hope you guys liked them.
I feel so validated and secure in myself. Thank you, John.
Now, did you find that yourself, or did a friend of the show?
Yeah, that was Marcia.
Oh, Marcia. Okay.
Marcia M.
Marcia.
Thank you, Marcia.
Yeah, she's been great. She's written us some good reviews.
So you gave her name, but you didn't give the name of the person who sent the other one.
No, I'm sorry. She didn't send me that one. She sent me the other one.
Oh, she sent the good one.
Yeah, I found that one on my own. Okay. Oh, yes, she found the good one. Yes,
that was fun. That
one was
one,
kind
Chris.
of a flat note, I think.
It was fun.
But hey, it tied in, so.
It did.
Yeah. Any other news?
Well, you're lucky I don't have my sad sound effect. I would have played it right there.
Oh, I think that probably does it for the news.
That's it for my news. You guys didn't hear anything belief hole worthy in the news this week?
Well, there's quite a bit of space news, I felt like, lately.
I was trying to avoid the space stuff because I mentioned that to you and you were like, well, we've done a lot of space news lately. Try to find something that's not space related.
Not too spacey.
It's true. But, well, that, I don't know if you guys saw that the signal that came recently.
Oh, that's the one I was going to read. And you're like, yeah, let's not do that because it's space related.
Oh, there's a recording of
that was another lead I got from Marcia, our street team belief hole gal.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't look too much into it because you were kind of suggesting we do something else. But yeah, I think that
it's the same thing. Like I feel like these reports come so often now, and it's just like the same sort of like, we heard this in space, we can't figure out what it is. Move on to.
I think the interesting thing about this one was that it was from the same location in space, and it was doing a repeating signal, and that's never happened before.
Yeah, I wish you had a recording of that because I heard it. I think I heard it on Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis.
Oh yeah, he covers a lot of those sounds.
It was pretty. It did sound very mechanical.
Well, we'll keep our eye on that story, and if more comes of it, maybe we'll get deeper into that.
Sweet.
Cool. Well, hey, is there anything you want to do before we get into take a quick break and get into the topic? Was there anything else you wanted to touch on?
Oh yeah, patrons. I'm sorry.
We had a couple new patrons, right?
Yeah.
Awesome supporters that are freaking awesome. So there are multiple ways you can help us if you want us to keep hearing these shows. We can keep putting them out. We need your support. So if you can't contribute financially, you can leave us reviews on iTunes. Reviews are great. Stars are great. Stars wherever you listen to the show. It really, really helps. It helps us get seen so we can get more subscribers and eventually maybe make some money so we can keep doing this eventually full time would be incredible. And if you do want to support us financially, you can go to our website and click on either PayPal to give us a direct donation, or even better, you can click on Patreon link, and that'll take you to our Patreon page where you can sign up for a subscription. You'll get bonus content that we will be putting up more and more of as the time comes. Get bonus content, subscribe.
Yeah, it's nice that we're on a regular schedule now of every other Wednesday.
Yeah, we are on the regular schedule.
And who are the awesome people that have helped us out, Chris?
Yeah, tell us these superheroes.
All right,
in our lives
yes.
right now.
Yeah, beliefful superheroes. Since the last episode, Abby, if you guys remember from the last episode, became a new patron with that great stinger John had made. She upped her patronage, so that's incredible, Abby. That really helps. It's amazing. We love you. Yes.
Yeah, Abby, we really, really, really appreciate it.
And she dropped a little comment in this time. She said, "You guys are awesome. Keep doing what you do." Smiley face.
Oh, sweetheart.
Yeah. And yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's stand up, Abby, wherever you are. Stand up.
We're on our feet right now, Abby. Saluting you.
All right, and then Rachel M gave us an incredible gift to put towards our efforts on the show. Thank you so much for that, Rachel.
Oh, just a real sweetheart.
Yeah, we made a special stinger for you this week, and we're going to play it in the break.
Every patron gets a stinger. Every patron gets a stinger.
Everybody gets a stinger. You get a stinger. You get a stinger.
Yeah, seriously, guys, that means so much to us. And again, if you guys aren't in a position, because, we're kind of in the same boat of not in the position really to, be dishing out money.
We're going to talk you right out of the donations.
No, but I'm just saying, reviews are great. Reviews really help us spread the word.
Tell your friends, share a bit of the show.
Reviews on iTunes are great. Stars, CastBox, or whatever app you're listening, if it has an option to put a review in, it would mean a lot, and you'll hear from us for sure.
Comment on Facebook. We got a Facebook page. You can comment, leave ideas.
A recommendation.
You can also call in to the show. If you go to our website, beliefhole.com, you can actually leave a message. It's called a speak pipe, I believe. And you can leave anything you want. You can leave a thank you. You can leave your own story. We'll play it on the show. So that would be fun for all of us.
Absolutely. We need some more actual voices.
Yeah, tell us an interesting story that's something paranormal or something that got your gears turning.
Yeah, or just call in
something.
Call Jeremy crazy, He's kind of crazy.
It doesn't hurt me because I know I'm right.
Anyway, let's give you guys a little break. And when we come back, we're going to get deep into the moon landing and the potential hoaxing of the event and how sad that would be if it's true.
That was very sad.
It was sad. All right, guys, stick around.
Incoming transmission.
Konnichiwa. This is a distress call from the USS Belief Hull, now transmitting just beyond lunar orbit. Our engines remain in critical condition due to Benson Jeremy's unfortunate lack of any actual engineering knowledge. And no one has seen Lieutenant John for days. We believe he's secluded himself in his quarters since his unexpected mutation at the Van Allen radiation belts. It was actually pretty gross, so I get it. As we drift further into the void, we want to thank all of you out there listening on behalf of the crew for your continued support. And today we especially thank Rachel, whose package will help to energize these transmissions as we continue our mission of exploring the deep unknown. Be good to one another. Belief Hole out.
NASA.
Ooh, NASA. And we're back. NASA, why you do it to me? You lied, you lied.
The lies, they hurt me. Hurt me so bad. NASA.
So lame.
NASA, you lied to me. Lied to all of us.
Never a straight answer. In my heart, we're still friends.
I'm playing this live right now, everyone.
It's live. You're actually playing it with your hands?
Yeah.
Wow, you good control that cutoff.
I know.
All right, and we're back.
Cool, guys.
And we're back.
We're about to get deep into the lunar landscape.
Let's get into the meat.
Let's get into the thick meat.
Didn't you used to have a meat sound effect you'd slapped
Yeah,
down?
that's gross.
I did every once in a while.
Oh, was that it?
So, guys, so did we go to the moon or not is the question of the hour.
Yeah, that's the question. And
how are we weaving into this tangled web of insanity?
Well, I thought it would be good to go
Should we start with a clip?
Yeah, I think we should go, kind of point by point and kind of break down like the most, I think, contested pieces of evidence or anomalous things that occurred. Since it's happened, there's been so many things that have just seemed strange, suspicious, and we're going to go through each one and look at some of the... and there's a lot, so we're not going to get to everything. Right. Nearly everything.
We'll list a couple of really good documentaries you can look at and judge for yourself, it's the Belief Hole, so you're here to listen and consider and, do your own research. So, point by point.
Did you guys, before we jump into this, I was just curious, did you find anything about like how it was done live from the moon and like the amount of power that it would take to send a signal through the vacuum of space?
Kilowattage? No,
it's just like...
Yeah, I don't have that specific detail, but I've heard people talk about it.
I think that's a really interesting point. I kind of figured that you didn't grab that, but I just thought that was one of the more interesting, like the amount of power and technology it would have taken. And we were just so far away from we didn't have cell phones or anything. And
right. There's no lagging in the image or the video footage.
It's just the whole idea and the amount of tons of equipment that you'd have to bring on the shuttle to even have an opportunity to get remotely close to something like that.
So you're saying there's a certain amount of power that would be required to send a transmission all the way from the moon to Earth, right?
Yes, because you need a medium to send the signal through, and because there's a vacuum in space and there's no air, the amount of power that would be needed is just ridiculously large. And that was before we had... So anyways, that was just a point that I thought was interesting. That
I think it was
wouldn't get to.
I think that it was 5 watts or
3 or 5 kilowatts.
Something that was kilowatts or watts that they had to transmit that signal.
Right.
It's been contested that you'd need a far greater amount of power in order to push the signal to Earth.
Right.
And we had a perfect transmission essentially that we were able to send out Sydney, Australia, and then bounce off,
It was, there were 2 locations that it was supposedly sent to, and then it was filmed off of a central location.
Right, and that's
projection screen.
That's another issue too, is the argument that the public didn't see a direct transmission. What they saw was another camera recording off of the direct signal, off of a screen, which is why we got such a blurry,
low quality
image, and we got it after the fact.
Right. And and we'll get into this later, but the interesting point there is, and I heard someone like Bill Nye or somebody trying to, prove that it did happen. He's like, well, the tapes, we had great quality tapes. We don't know where they are now.
Right.
But they were there. Well, that's not evidence. If you say we had it, but they lost it. And that's, I think, one of the biggest damning factors. And we'll look at that.
Yeah.
The missing tapes and the missing telemetry data.
And that just reminds me of the argument that, we have moon rocks. They came back from the space shuttle, and they right on the box is written moon rocks.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Circular logic.
We got
right on the box. Yeah,
right.
That's
we know they went because they were there.
Great evidence.
Right. It's that circular logic.
That's obviously not the skeptic's best argument. That was just one I think is just funny.
Yeah. And then the moon rock thing, we'll get to that too. There's an interesting anecdote around the moon rock issue.
All right, well, let's jump into some of the...
Okay, let's get in.
All right. Issue number 1.
Neat.
Did you want to do their return?
We can start. I guess we can start. That kind of sets the mood.
Yeah. I think to me, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, this is to me the most intriguing evidence that we may not have gone.
Right.
At least all the way. And it also, to me, gives another impression that the 3 guys, Buzz and Neil and, what is the other guy's name?
Forgets.
Charlie?
No, it's definitely not Charlie.
I think it starts with a C. We'll get to him. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I can't remember your name,
sir.
Because he's important in this whole history, too, as far as like the statements he made initially and he changed them later. But these 3 guys, they seem in this clip, they seem so sad, so dejected. And to me, it reads as if they
Michael Collins.
Michael Collins. Thank you. It reads to me that they weren't aware it was going to be hoaxed until right before it happened.
Yeah, and it's hard to tell from...
Can I play devil's advocate here for a second?
Sure, yeah. But before
why they... Okay, maybe we should listen to the clip first.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's with this clip, it's hard. I mean, we're going to have this exact video on our website so you can see their body language and their kind of reaction to the questions.
Will we?
Yeah, we're going to have it up there. So check out belieful.com and go to this episode for the episode notes. But we're going to have this video, and if you watch the video, you can see Neil Armstrong. We're going to play this clip when he says... this has been a decade-long adventure. You can see him. He bites his lip, chin, he's choking back tears. And at some point he pulls back in his chair. It just looks so sad. And through the entire press conference, which is much longer than just this clip, their body language, the responses are just so dejected and down. And honestly, it looks like he is extremely depressed and feel in a way that you feel guilty when you're pulled in the principal's office and you're
right. And you can argue, I've heard people argue that Neil Armstrong is a private guy, he's a shy guy, and it was just him being shy. But all three of them, and Buzz Aldrin is not a shy dude. If you've ever seen Buzz since this, he is an outgoing, full of energy dude. In this, he looks, pro wrestling. They don't make eye contact with people. They're looking down, they're fidgeting. They all look severely depressed.
Right. And we'll get your devil's advocate, John.
Let's play the clip. You ready?
Roll tape.
At this time, I'd like to introduce the Apollo 11 crew, astronauts Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, Edwin Aldrin. Neil?
Even that guy sounds depressed.
I know.
It was our pleasure to have participated in one great adventure. It's an adventure that took place not just in the month of July, but rather one that took place in the last decade.
Right there. That's where he's doing it. That's where he looks like he's going to cry.
We all here and the people listening in today had the opportunity to share that adventure over its developing and unfolding in the past months and years. It's our privilege today to share with you some of the details of that final month of July. That was certainly the highlight for the three of us.
Was it?
None of them are smiling at this point. No one's smiling, making eye contact.
We're going to divert a little bit from the
this is interesting here.
Format of past press conferences and talk about the things that interested us most, in particular the things that occurred on and about the moon. We will use a number of films and slides which most of you have already seen.
So we don't have to fake anything else.
And with the intent of pointing out some of the things that we observed on the spot, which may not be obvious to those of you who are looking at them here from the surface of Earth.
He sounds like a sad high school teacher that's teaching to no one that
does not want to do it.
Exactly. And the body language, man, you got to watch the video. The body language is just like...
It started promptly.
It's like he's trying so hard to push the words out.
And I think that was characteristic.
It sounds like they failed from his voice tone.
Of all the events of the flight. The Saturn gave us one magnificent ride.
That's so sad.
Right there, too. Man, he's just like...
His eyes at this point
into Earth orbit
just he looks like he's saying, "I wish it did."
And on a trajectory to the moon.
That's probably enough. Yeah. I mean, you look up the video online, but I mean,
it just certainly doesn't sound like. And my argument was going to be, or my devil's advocate argument was going to be, could it be like postpartum depression?
Right. They're back on the Earth,
or even some sort of. Who knows how it actually would affect people being in space, and
maybe all your dopamine is gone after you return to Earth.
Right.
And
they had
recently got out of the decompression or the quarantine, whatever chamber, so that could play an effect. But it's just when you watch the video, it's so.
I think you just got back from the moon. You survived. There's got to be some level of excitement there.
Right, adrenaline still going.
Or even
it just sounds like the voices just sound so lost and sad and. Yeah,
dejected.
it sounds like they failed through the voice tone.
Right,
it sounds like they didn't do it.
Yeah, and Buzz is like a high energy dude, and in this, he's just rarely looking up at anybody. No smiling. Everybody's kind of tugging at their sleeves.
Did anyone call that out at the time?
I don't know. That'd be a good thing to look into to see if at the time reporters were like, "Why are they being
I'm sure people probably had to wonder a little bit.
Yeah.
But. How come they're not more excited?
Well, if you compare
just happened
in the Soviet Union, Yuri Gagarin, who was the first man. Well, he wasn't actually the first man in space, but they said he was at the time.
Right, a bunch of them died.
Yeah, before him. But when he came back, from being out so far or whatever, and actually being in Earth orbit and whatever, when he came back, he was like elated, jumping with joy, you know, just like supposedly his press conference, he was just so cheerful and excited. And yeah, obviously Neil Armstrong is a very private, soft-spoken guy, but when you watch the video and you see him, it's typical, and I'm not a body language expert, but I know from like when I get really sad and I'm holding back tears, like your chin kind of like locks in a certain way, and it's on certain words when he's like, this has been an adventure for the last decade, and he just like is holding back, and he moves back in his seat trying to like regain.
Jeremy's
his
like
energy.
an expert at this kind of stuff.
I'm obviously
too,
not,
so
but anyone who watches
you fight back tears almost on a daily basis. So you know
I would say
exactly.
hourly, because there's just a lot of pain in the world, and I feel it. But
you're biting your lip.
But check out the video; it's on our website. It will be when this episode
Another
comes
interesting
out.
thing that takes place in that video, in that clip, in that conference, is Buzz and Neil are asked, or at least Neil's asked, you know, what were the stars like? Or something, and they kind of contradict each other. Michael Collins kind of looks over and says something softly and says, I don't recall seeing any stars. And then right when he says that, Neil Armstrong like moves back in his chair, looks in real quick, looks back, and like pulls his arm back. Looks like do we say like he just stepped in, like Michael Collins stepped in shit. Like he said something he shouldn't have said. And then years later, Michael Collins wrote a book, and in his book he said how amazing the view of the stars were on this mission. Right. So don't you think you'd remember like later he remembered how amazing it was to see, and then his story was corroborated? Like wouldn't that just seems bizarre. And you know, again, people can say
it's like one of the most like you think that would be one of the first things you'd notice, right?
But
like,
Neil Armstrong said, I don't recall seeing any stars.
It was Michael Collins that said that.
No, I think he said that maybe it was. Yeah. I can't remember. But
anyway, watch the clip. It's really telling.
Yeah, one of them basically said that he doesn't recall seeing, and the other one said it was like the brightest white light you could possibly imagine, sort of thing, right?
Like different times. Yeah, that admission came out later. That explanation, but
that's bizarre.
Another thing about the stars, because I don't think we have this to cover later, so I want to mention it now, is that one of the arguments that we didn't go is that there are no photographs of the stars, and you can't. Obviously, the argument that you can't see stars in the background on a lot of or any of the Apollo shots at all is because the high reflective nature of the moon's surface. There was so much light; you'd have to have a different exposure for the stars. But the argument is you didn't have one camera set up to capture the stars with that exposure. You know, if you're up, like imagine you'd see galaxies, you'd see things that we couldn't see from Earth at the time. Yeah, and it would be so incredible to have that information. And the argument is they didn't, because they would have had to invent the constellations at that point, and any mistake or anything made up later would have come out that those don't exist in that way. Yeah. So any amateur astronomer would be like, that's not right.
Not have a camera that
just not have a picture.
Shoots the constellations.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Weird
stuff.
Okay, so yeah, Chris, what's the next?
Well, I thought the next thing that would be good to discuss would be the like we mentioned earlier, the lost tapes and the lost telemetry data, because I think these are arguably the other two pieces of the puzzle that are just.
These are some pretty big high strangeness territory we're entering into right now.
Yeah, absolutely. There are over 10,000 missing tapes, weighing over a ton. So unlike Bill Nye said on some Geraldo interview to debunk this, well, they lost one tape.
Right.
It wasn't one tape. It was thousands of tapes.
Over 10,000
Yeah,
tapes.
he's like, well, they're going to misplace a tape here and there. This was all the tapes and all
this was the greatest achievement of mankind to date.
Right.
Right. Most valuable information.
How much money did they spend to supposedly do this, to
Billions
gather
of
the
dollars.
Technology? And but they're just like, and it gets better too, because it's one of the reasons we haven't gone back since. So,
you want to
roll that tape?
Let's play, the first clip I want to play is from Aaron Rainin. He's a documentary filmmaker. Uh-huh. He was paid by the state of Ohio to prove that the Apollo 11 mission happened the way it was said to have happened. And during the course of his investigation throughout that year, he found out it was, for him, impossible to prove. There was no hard evidence proving that we went. So instead, he ended up making a documentary called Did We Go? So the first clip, if you want to play it, John, I think his name is in the clip, Aaron Rainin.
Yeah, I got it. I got it right here. Ready?
Yes, go for it.
All the science data, the telemetry data was missing. For NASA to come out and say that all the tapes were erased, I mean, it's incredible. This isn't just one tape. This is reams of tape labeled Apollo 11 moon landing. Someone had to physically go and erase it.
Good.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah. It's not like, it's not a cassette tape. You know, it's not like recording over your mixtape.
Yeah. It wasn't a love mix someone made for you.
No, it wasn't an accident. It had to be done purposefully, or it never existed.
Right. And the skeptic argument would be that they needed the tape, and tape was very expensive. So they just re-recorded over for other missions.
Right.
Which just sounds insane.
Well,
That's
and
crazy.
especially because we can't go back because we don't have the data. It's just like
That's part of it.
Or the
part of their
technology.
argument.
First time in the history of the world that technology's gone backwards and we can't recreate it.
Yeah, it just seems so
Pretty hard
outlandish.
to
But
believe.
we'll get more into that too, specifically. But the next clip I want to play, the next two clips are from the same documentary. In the first clip, we hear Gene Kranz. He's the Apollo 11 flight director, and he's discussing the lost data.
Okay.
Everything that was happening aboard the Apollo 11 flight was constantly streaming down to antenna sites all over the world. From the astronauts' heartbeats to electrical use inside the command module, it was all recorded on these telemetry tapes. So where is this hard evidence?
I haven't seen anything that indicates the telemetry data is even in existence, and as I said, even if we had it, we don't have the machines to play it back.
But your own research has shown the telemetry data is missing.
That's right.
Bummer.
Yeah.
What a bummer.
Yeah, really.
And we can't build those machines to play
I think
it back.
I might have went out in Wednesday's garbage by accident.
There's no blueprints of the lander. There's no blueprints of any of the technology. It's just gone.
Yeah. Pretty maddening.
Insane.
So that was Gene Kranz, the flight commander.
And
the
even if we did, we wouldn't have the tape machines to play it back.
Yeah.
Like
And we don't. And
you get how much billions of dollars a month? Like you can't find a way to like
Or you
make a
can't-
machine
that plays the tape
plays
that
it
you
back.
once played?
Yeah.
Like, is it
from the
lost ancient
70s?
Egyptian technology?
Yeah.
No, it's like,
It's
like a 50s
absurd.
tape player.
Yeah. It's
Dumb
insanity.
stupid.
It's dumb stupid.
Yeah, it just seems outrageous. Outrageous, I
Do
say.
you have one more clip with that?
It's
Chris?
outrageous. What do they think? We're dumb?
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the last clip here. This is in this clip we hear the voice. This is Dr. David Williams. He's the archivist at the Goddard Space Center, where all the telemetry data from the missions are stored.
Doesn't have it either. The Smithsonian doesn't have it. Johnson doesn't have it.
Right. We've been unable to track it down. I mean, we don't know where this telemetry data ended up, and we don't know what path it may have taken. So, unfortunately, I'm afraid I can't really give you much of a clue as to where this data ended up and whether it still exists or not.
Oh, shucks.
Oh, I don't know. And again, like I don't think it's these.
Right.
I don't think it's these guys that have information. Like we talked about the compartmentalization thing. I don't think these are bad guys that are aware that this was happening, that this is taking place.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. I think even the flight commander. I think that he was reading the data that was being put in. I mean, if it was faked, which I'm definitely leaning that way. He's being fed this data from somewhere, but not from the moon.
Right. Well, even before the Apollo missions took place, they sent up a satellite in an effort to simulate tracking an object in space and recording the telemetry data. So they had the simulation ready to go. So the argument could be that's what they used.
Oh, they just did it again?
Or it could have been off-site somewhere, another radio tower somewhere to some other military base sending that telemetry data to them and them reading it as it's real. But they don't know, they can't really authenticate the data.
So let's do the devil's advocate on this one though, real quick. Like what could have happened to those tapes in a way that maybe is it potentially that they just don't want to share them again, and like so they make it up that they may still have the tapes, but they just don't want us to go there again. So for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think, I've heard one person say, and this one doesn't make sense to me. This first one doesn't make sense to me. I heard someone discuss it and say, well, it could have been somebody who and I think he was speaking specifically about the recordings, the high definition recordings. He's saying, well, someone that worked there might have kept it as a trophy. Maybe they just snagged it. Which I can see if it, but there's so many tapes. It wasn't just one. These are reels of tape. You get caught.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I think this is a possibility, and I'm saying this because I like to believe
aliens.
I like to believe in that. When maybe they did get there. I mean, again, like after watching the footage of them at the conference, I had a really hard time believing they actually made it to the moon. But I like the idea that they did, and when they got there were ships already on the horizon, and maybe they had to make some accord with the Greys or something, or the reptilians, and they were not allowed to go back, and so maybe they had to lose the data so that we couldn't go back again. It would be another reason why we haven't gone back in 50 years.
It's not impossible.
Just an idea. I mean, to play devil's advocate.
Well, is it possible too that are we going to get into the Stanley Kubrick like, and how he was involved in a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, allegedly. That's definitely.
I have that kind of. I figure we get into that at the very end because I know we're gonna we'll probably do a bigger breakdown in another episode involving all of his.
Yeah,
films.
I didn't know if you had any of that stuff prepared or not.
Yeah, we'll touch on it. We'll touch on it.
The whole story and how that they could have used movie magic to fake all this stuff to begin with. And even if we did go, it seemed like that would be a way, because it was such an intense race to get there, and it was like so much was on the line. And regardless, it's like it was like a security deposit in case we didn't actually do it.
Yeah.
And that seems like a total possibility too. Like they had, all this other footage recorded and ready to go, like in Hollywood style, just in case we didn't get there. So we could, still make the American people believe that, we had done it, and the Russians.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. We didn't really say it at the outset, but for anybody who's wondering and they haven't heard of this theory before, wondering why would we fake it? Why just say we couldn't get there? Well, the idea is that we needed to beat the Russians to the moon. Right. And if we could present the idea that we did, then it would stop the space race. It would stop them.
And there's precedent for that because, in World War II, there was what magician that they had hired, or
one of the soldiers that was like a well-known magician
and professional artists to build
illusionist,
to build inflatable tanks. This is just one example. They built a bunch of inflatable tanks to trick the Germans into thinking we were assaulting with a front over here in this area of the country. Right. In reality, we're storming Normandy or whatever. Yeah. So we use illusion to trick our enemies into distracting them so we can, either get them to back down or misdirect their attention. And we've done that in the past. The problem with this situation is, in order to do that with the Soviets, it's a global event, so you have to also trick your own citizenry. You can't tell the Americans, don't worry, like we didn't actually make it, but we got to tell the Russians we did. So it's, it's an.
Do you think there's any other reasons besides? I feel like, the way that this stuff works on a high level, there would be more than just like wanting the people to imagine that we've been to space. It seems like there would be more than just one reason, like why they would want us to believe that.
For
more
sure.
Than just like that we were beating the Russians and we have this morale. Like there's got to be like multiple levels of why they would want us to believe.
Right. There's multiple benefits. Yeah. Anytime you have knowledge, that's power. And if you have knowledge that other people don't, and everyone else is believing something that you've created, you have that ability to manipulate for whatever purposes.
Psychological control.
Right. And then also financial, the billions and billions of dollars that goes to NASA.
Well, that's true. That's a definite possibility.
What black budget projects are those feeding?
Exactly. That's a whole another episode for sure, talking about if this is like a big sort of hoax, which is hard to believe, like in a lot of ways, that NASA is just whatever, using this money for things that we don't fully understand, which, Jeremy, I think you'd be a pretty good proponent of an idea like that. But yeah, that's just the money in itself. Who knows where that's going if that's the case.
I think another interesting idea of why, if we did get there, the idea of like why we would have to get rid of the data if we're playing that devil's advocate argument, I think one of the interesting ideas is the idea of the breakaway civilization. I don't know, John, if you've heard of this idea before, but it was initially coined by Richard Dolan, who was like, in my opinion, one of the best ufologists out there. But it's the idea that after Roswell and after the early crashes, pre-Roswell even, we had captured discs, kind of like Bob Lazar was talking about. And in the 40s and 50s, we've been able to reverse engineer them. And then we started using that technology to build a space fleet for whatever purposes, but it was the clandestine, deep state government that was building it. So it's so compartmentalized that it's become, so that idea is that we got to the moon, if we did, the dark, deep state already had people there. And they're like, we're doing stuff here. We can't have like regular citizens coming up here and
so we have to
seeing what's going on.
Down.
Yeah, that's that's just another out there idea, but to me, it's not that far-fetched.
The one piece of evidence, I'm taking off my flat earth coat right now. The one piece of evidence that would corroborate that kind of idea would be the famous story of Gary McKinnon. I think that's his name. He was a British hacker. And he did very basic hacking, and he was able to hack, I think, the Pentagon and supposedly Area 51, I think. And he did it because they left their admin password for their network as password.
Right.
So he got in, which maybe, and this would be the argument that if it's disinformation, that they set it up easy so he could find it. But one of the things he found was a document titled "Off-World Officers," that listed their salaries and names. And so the argument is that that's a list of people that were working for the military off planet.
Right.
So that would corroborate that. And I'm going to put my flat earth jacket back on.
He's the only hacker. Is the only hacker that's been...
Oh, yeah. He's the only hacker that the United States government
has tried to
extradite from Britain.
Right.
And, if anything, it's some guy that supposedly found, pictures of cigar-shaped, craft floating above the earth.
Right. And this is back when, internet technology was like you had to wait a second for it to like halfway show you an image. It was like,
dial-up modem.
Yeah, 56K.
Yeah. But anyways, putting off the idea of why they do this and the motive, let's get back into some of the evidence and some of the clips here, Chris.
Okay.
Why don't we take a quick break first?
Yeah.
Because we've got about half of the I think the information left. To be maybe a good idea to chop it up and take a little breather and let that digest in people's minds, because we've thrown a lot of stuff out there.
Okay, let's do it.
NASA.
NASA.
Oops.
Oh.
NASA.
NASA.
NASA. NASA. NASA. NASA. NASA. NASA. NASA. NASA. NASA. NASA. NASA.
Yes. And we're back.
That was great. I like that, John. That was good.
Back with more NASA trickery. Allegedly.
Right. That was good, John. I really like that. Okay, so getting back.
Stop me.
Stop
mouth
me.
words.
Okay,
Stop me.
Come to the talkie box.
The next important element we want to touch on, Chris. Do you like that for a segue?
It's getting dicey out there.
So the next important element you wanted to talk about.
Sorry.
That's okay. I forgive you. Where are we at, Chris?
Hasselblad.
Oh, you're skipping over the moon rocks and stuff?
Oh, shit. Yeah, I thought that was a really fascinating little piece of arguable evidence.
The moon
there
rocks.
that we faked the moon landing. John, I think you've probably heard of this. Jeremy, I know you've heard of this. So Neil, Buzz, and Michael Collins, they gave a moon rock to the Dutch. This was right after their initial mission.
Oh, okay.
And it had been sitting in a museum for 50 years. And in 2009, it was discovered that it was actually a piece of petrified wood.
Is that true?
Yes.
I heard
this
that,
is
but
this is an article.
That's hard to
this
believe.
is an article from the Telegraph. I just got a couple paragraphs here.
That's insane if that's true. That's crazy that would even happen.
Exactly. So here's the little bit here. Curators at the Amsterdam Museum, where the rock has attracted tens of thousands of visitors each year, discovered that the, quote, lunar rock, valued at 308,000 pounds, was in fact petrified wood. Zandra van Gelder, who oversaw the investigation, said the museum would continue to keep the stone as a curiosity. Quote, "It's a good story with some questions that are still unanswered," she said. "We can laugh about
kind of. Wow.
Yeah.
I was like, why wouldn't you make it a rock, first of all?
Why would? I know how it happened. This is my theory. But
okay.
So before we went to the moon, Wernher von Braun, the father of rocketry, who designed the Saturn rocket that took us to the moon, allegedly, he went to Antarctica. This was shortly, like months before the mission. Went to Antarctica and collected moon rocks. Moon rocks that had supposedly fallen from meteorite impacts.
Right.
Fallen in Antarctica. So he collected those.
I'm starting to see, Jeremy.
Maybe when he collected those moon rocks that maybe we allegedly got from the moon later in that box labeled moon rocks, maybe one of those that he collected was just a piece of petrified wood, frozen in
Thinking
Antarctica.
it was another moon rock?
Right.
Wouldn't that be interesting?
So they're handing them out because they didn't get them from the moon. They got them from Antarctica, and one of those slipped in was just petrified wood. That's my theory.
Dude,
but we do know that
that's a pretty good theory.
We know that von Braun went down there, and that's odd that the guy who's designed the rockets just takes a trip to Antarctica and collects
right before the mission.
Right. So,
dude, that's so bizarre. I mean, yeah, like that's a tough one. I mean, I know it's like definitely circumstantial evidence, but
yeah,
right.
It's really bizarre.
And I will say,
to like give someone petrified wood if they really went to the moon and like, I mean, it's potentially they just didn't have it and they were, but regardless, it's a lie. I mean, it didn't come from the moon, that's for sure. They didn't pick that up on the moon because there's no trees up there.
Right.
Well, NASA never gave a comment about this after it was discovered to be fake. No comment.
Why would you?
Right. And also, like, some people have said, like, oh, they're probably just like
NASA.
They were probably just pulling a prank. Like, it was a joke. Well, why would you not tell the punchline of the joke ever?
Yeah,
50 years later,
joke, dude.
they discovered that it was fake. So it's not like they were like, gotcha, you know? It was like they were caught.
That's sort of the way NASA does work, so maybe it was sort of a gotcha, but not for the reasons that we would think.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so what's the next
so we're gonna
point?
That'll take us to the legendary Hasselblad cameras. These are the cameras that were mounted on the chests of the astronauts when they were in space. I think they only had 2 in the first mission. Because each Buzz and Armstrong had them mounted on their chest, and the Collins never left the lander.
Right.
So all the pictures you see on the moon are allegedly taken with these Hasselblad cameras, which were great cameras, but they were augmented for the moon landing. And a couple key points about that is the viewfinder was removed. So they couldn't actually see what they were
taking pictures of.
And
they removed the viewfinder, I mean, for good reason, because they can't lean over and look down.
Right.
With their giant
So
helmets.
that makes
so
sense.
they just got rid of the viewfinder.
And they
so
had
no way to look to see what your picture you're taking.
Right, and they had a pistol grip thing so they could actually take the pictures, but they had no way of like adjusting shutter or aperture or even seeing if it'd come out blurry.
All the manual controls were on the side of the camera, so there was no way to see the dials that they were adjusting. There was actually not even a way for them to know if they took a picture, really, because there's no sound. And how you get the sound from the camera taking a picture is
in film cameras.
I think the mirror flicking up.
Right. So they had no way of knowing that the shots were even happening. And what's bizarre and it's almost impossible is that every picture we have is a clear, beautiful, in focus, perfectly exposed image.
Great composition.
Almost like it was done on a studio set.
Right.
You know, lighting, there's a lot of problems with the lighting in the photographs, and I'll get into a couple of those points. But that's just one of the interesting notes about the cameras they took up there, which gave us all the photographic evidence we have that we actually went.
Right.
But
the lighting was interesting too, because the argument's been made a lot that there's obviously different light sources during this mission because you have shadows going at different angles.
Right.
And really the only light source they have there is the sun. So you shouldn't have...
You have no way to like illuminate areas of pitch black shadow.
Unless you're on a set.
Right, and to make everything perfect. And so a couple of things I'll mention here. The skeptics' argument about that as well, and Mythbusters, did an episode on this, but the argument is that the moon surface is so reflective, it's a special fine powder that exists only on the moon.
It creates like as a kind of a fill light.
Light sources from different angles. So if there's a slope, that'll reflect the sunlight at a different angle and it will cause a shadow in a different direction. But the problem is a lot of these images, the shadows are going in drastically different directions with no visible slope or angles on the surface. So it seems highly unlikely that would be the cause.
Jeremy, it's just that reflective that even like the slightest little incline can create new shadows.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, and also that the shadows are different lengths. Like if the sun is your sun is your key light, right? Your bright light, and it's, thousands of miles away, you're not going to have a difference in the length of a shadow from two different subjects standing side by side.
The same height.
Right. So the argument there is that, they were using a key light on a stage, like any lighting situation.
And another fill lights.
And a fill light. Right.
So casting different shadows.
So the light is closer, and then you have different lengths of shadows because of the distance from the subject to the light.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's a lot of really strange things, and there has been a lot. I mean, I've heard the skeptic arguments to that, and some of them are interesting. And really, this is one of the situations where it's.
But you collide that with all the other corroborating evidence that is problematic. Like, for instance, the Hasselblad cameras had these little crosshairs on the screen, so they could kind of track where the images, how they were like laid out. And we'll have these pictures on our website, but. In some of these images, the crosshairs, which are on the lens of the camera, actually show up blocked by some of the foreground objects. In other words, a lot of the images are highly
exactly. I was going to say that.
Highly suggestible that they are composites. So you have images put together after the fact, because that's the only way these crosshairs could be edited. It could be behind images, is that it's images overlaid on top of each other, composite images. So another interesting, fascinating point, I'm looking at pictures right now, is the lunar lander, right? This, super expensive
the erector
four-wheeler
set made by an autistic 12-year-old.
Exactly. That costs like how many millions of dollars? But what's
with
fascinating,
duct tape around, like there's like tape on it,
like tinfoil
on the outside of it. Yeah, it's very strange looking.
Yeah, it's strange looking, but what's even stranger looking in these photographs is there are no track marks in a lot of these images where it's like the lunar lander, or not the lunar lander, sorry, the rover. Did I say lander?
I think you said lander.
I said lander. I'm talking about the rover.
Rover.
Little four-wheeler. So the four-wheeler thing is on there in these images without any tracks, tire tracks behind or in front of the rover. In other words, it looks like it was dropped down from a crane on a set, perfectly placed in the picture.
Yeah. How did it get away from the lander
there would have to
and
be
not have tracks?
Yeah, there'd have to be track
Because
marks.
especially if you see footsteps in a lot of the images, which is another weird thing. Sometimes there are footsteps, sometimes there aren't.
Right.
No lander tracks in some of the images when it's removed from the lander, further from the lander. You'd have to have a track.
No rover tracks.
Right.
Yeah, how is that possible? That's a problem. So just to wrap up the photographic evidence, because the photographic evidence, come to our website, we'll have these images up there and links to more, because they are just incredibly fascinating. I would say, John, you mentioned the Stanley Kubrick connection earlier, and so 2001 Space Odyssey had been put out before the moon landings, and in that he used a new technology he developed. I think is it called front screen projection?
I can't remember, but it sounds right.
But
Something
basically,
like that.
yeah, you project a backdrop behind the scene, and it gives the impression that there is this great background behind you.
Right.
And a lot of these shots you look at, and if you zoom in, and we'll have these pictures up there, you can see like the lunar surface kind of going off in the background, and then at some point there's this line. And in some of these images where the line, so you start to see what would look like a backdrop, look totally it looks fake. But but you see the line where it's supposed to be the same material, the same lunar dust, and it's just a completely different color.
Yeah, the color tones are different, the texture's different.
Yeah, and then it goes up to follow with the rest of the backdrop. It just looks so
And
fake.
every image is like that. Every image has that line, that
horizon line that's just like...
Guys, get back to reality. Like, come on. This is just crazy.
It's nonsense. You're speaking nonsense. Yeah, just look at the pictures and really consider that. Like, consider these arguments, because there are a lot of things that are difficult for you to argue away.
I can just hear Mythbusters coming in.
Oh, I know. Well, yeah,
I mean, for the most average, I don't want to say that. I don't like being like, well, most people, but it is like, for most people, this thought makes you sound crazy.
Right.
Tinfoil hat.
The idea that we never went to the moon. Yeah, it's like, but it's like they've never looked into this stuff. There's enormous discrepancies in their story.
Yeah.
And I'm not a flat earther, Jeremy, but I understand why people
Well, yeah,
can
you don't
think
even have
that.
Yeah, you don't even have to be a flat earther. I had major problems with the moon landing thing way before I dabbled in the Earth being flat. Like, this is something you can look at and just be like, it doesn't have to go into the flat Earth realm, obviously. I mean,
No. I just meant like people look at the flat Earth argument and they're like, you're insane, but they've never actually looked at any of the evidence. They don't.
Exactly.
They've never looked at anything.
That's
just
frustrating.
Like to call you crazy,
right?
Because they like their little safety comfort zone of thinking that they know the truth about things.
The people aren't lying to them. Yeah, it's a scary thing.
Yeah, like, because those are some serious lies.
Right.
Like, the moon landing is pretty intense.
Yeah.
I think for people that have never thought about, like, the extent that the government does lie to us in the news organizations.
Right. Here's an interesting thought problem, critical thinking problem for your brain. You know, you see all the videos of NASA astronauts jumping around on the moon, going what looks like, I mean, if you analyze it, like slow motion. So the Earth's moon is 1/6 the gravity of Earth, right? So you're lighter there. So you should be, even if you're weighed down by boots to help you stay attached to the surface, you should be moving faster. You should be jumping higher, moving quicker. But instead, they're moving in what looks like slow motion. And if you speed up the footage to the appropriate amount, they're just walking.
Yeah, but would you fall slower though? Like, I get what you're saying. If you push off, you would go faster up, but you would come down slower,
all your
right?
movement would be quicker, because
even the falling though, gravity pulling you down wouldn't be as fast.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, but you would move quicker. You would jump quicker.
Right. You would, if you were running, you would go fast. You would just
it
fall
seems like
to the ground slower.
You wouldn't fall as fast. Yeah, you would fall slower, but you would. Right?
Yeah,
you'd fall slower, but you'd be able to jump way higher.
You'd be like Mario when he gets like the wings. Is that when he gets when he jumps and then you get the hang time, but you jump quick.
Or when you speed, you're doing the speed run and then you hit the jump button and then you just jump
you get to glide
higher.
a little.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. I like that.
But yeah, so
that's what it would seem like. I mean, obviously, it's a whole different environment on the moon. So we don't know, but it would seem logically like that would be the case. But I think probably what you're just gonna point out that Stanley Kubrick, that's the technique he used in 2001, was slowing down the speed of the film to make it look as if they were going in slow motion, to make it look like they were in low gravity.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of tricks that he used to pull off the 2001 Space Odyssey being realistic.
And then it happened to turn out that the moon landing footage looked a lot like Stanley Kubrick's vision of what it would be like to be in space.
Right, and I'm pretty sure there's a strong evidence that he was at least a consultant during the moon landing. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, so in the argument that we would have faked it just in case, because if something did go terribly wrong, then we can show the people that everything's okay.
NASA.
So maybe we made it there, but we faked it just in case as an argument.
Right.
So NASA. So
just little subtle drops of,
The last thing I'm going to say about the photographic and video evidence, because there's so much to go over that we're not going to now. But one of the most fascinating things, find the video clip, you guys at home, of the astronaut who falls down.
Oh, yeah.
And when he's trying to get back up, he's pulled back up as if from a harness. He doesn't stand up or like use his legs and get back up. His ass is tugged, and he's like woo, 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 and he's like pulled back upright. There's no physical way.
He's not pushing off the ground and then just naturally going back up. He's getting pulled from his like backpack.
Yeah, there's no physical way.
Can we talk about I'm sorry, finish whatever. I didn't mean to interrupt the last part of what you're saying.
Oh, it's okay. That was the last thing I was going to touch on before going to the Van Allen radiation belt, because that's such a huge thing.
Before we jump into the radiation belt, I wanted to talk briefly about the idea of compartmentalization. I think we touched on it maybe last episode, but a lot of people that I've mentioned a lot of these conspiracy theories to, they don't understand how they could be possible, because someone would tell. There'd be no way that they could hold a secret like this for so long. And it seems like there's a lot of layers to the idea of compartmentalization. The first idea is that all these groups are sort of siphoned off into their own specialties, and they don't get all of the information. That's like one point of it. But there's another point too that goes into the idea of like people that come out with the information, the people that actually do break the barrier, and how like in our brains, conspiracy theories, anyone that leaks sort of information like this is immediately labeled an insane person.
Yeah.
So like even if someone does slip out of the cracks of the compartmentalization structure, there's a catch for those people that come out too.
Right. Well, yeah,
you want to add to that?
Yeah, to touch on that, like that's a great point. The herd, the sheep basically herding themselves. If someone steps out, well, you have the population to ridicule them. You've already convinced the people that it's crazy. The CIA developed the term conspiracy theorist when people questioned that the Warren Commission wasn't telling the truth about the JFK assassination. People could look at that and say, they did a test on Lee Harvey Oswald's hand, and there's no evidence that he fired a rifle, so we don't trust the government on this. And so what the CIA did is we need a phrase that we can label these people.
It's a psyop on the population.
Exactly. We create the term conspiracy theorist, which they did. Like that's come out. And now when someone says, well, I'm just challenging the government, I don't trust the government, now they can say, well, you're just a conspiracy theorist. You believe in conspiracy theories.
And tinfoil hat wearing person.
You
Anyone
put them
that
in a
questions
box.
the official narrative.
Yeah, you set them aside. They're not to be taken seriously because they're labeled a conspiracy theorist, and then you've done away with them. And then the population joins in on that.
Yeah, I think one of the best examples of compartmentalization working to keep something quiet, and this is the argument you always hear against conspiracy theories. Well, there's not people conspiring to do these elaborate things, because when you involve a lot of people, they're going to know what they're doing. They're going to find out, and they're going to tell people. But the Manhattan Project is, I think, a perfect example, because the Manhattan Project obviously being the project that the U.S. government had that was developing the atomic bomb. Right. So they had over 130,000 employees working on this project in different compartments of the project, but no one knew they were building a nuclear bomb.
Or hydrogen bomb.
Except the few people at the very top.
Yeah. That's like the example of compartmentalization.
Right. Again, like obviously they didn't have to hold on to the secret for 50 years, but that's an example of it working up into the point of it being developed.
Yeah.
So you can absolutely
have
have
it was
that.
a secret. They didn't know it was a secret until the government came out and said that they had the weapon, right? Like,
they didn't.
If the government would have never come out and used the weapon, like they would have never known.
Well, that's a great point. If let's say the government had developed this bomb, but then used it in clandestine ways, and they're like, oh, it's strange. These countries are being bombed, but we don't know. It's a strange occurrence where this giant clouds happening. Like if they never openly did it. So that's a good point, John. If the government was involved in projects where they were doing things like, let's say, for example, giant hovering silent spacecrafts that they were building or engineering, and you had people working on these crafts but not knowing they were building them, and the government never admitted that that's what the end result was, then how would anybody ever know that they were building these crafts?
Yeah.
That's a great example.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. That's like a perfect example of how you use people in large capacities, but they don't get enough information to really fully understand the big picture.
Exactly. Yeah.
Creepy.
Very creepy.
Spooky.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the radiation belt stuff, because
Okay.
this stuff's pretty interesting too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, there's so much photographic evidence. I'm going to put a link to a great website that just blows this stuff out of the water. It's insane. So many problems, like this identical background with different foregrounds. The lunar lander moving, how is that possible after it's landed? Just crazy anomalies. No shadows when there should be. But yeah, let's get into the Van Allen radiation belt. I think we have a couple clips for that, John. Do the funny thing, because this is from the documentary, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, which we'll also link on our website. Click the one that says Funny Thing Van Allen belts. This will give a good description of what they are.
High above the Earth, beginning at an altitude of 1,000 miles and extending an additional 25,000 miles, lay lethal bands of radiation called the Van Allen radiation belts. Every space mission in history with humans on board, from both the United States and Soviet Union, from the first in 1961 to the present, has been well below this deadly radiation field. Mercury, Gemini, Soyuz, Skylab, the Space Shuttle, all maintained altitudes well below 1,000 miles. All except Apollo. In order to survive the hour-and-a-half journey through this radiation field necessary to reach the moon and return, solid lead shielding between the astronauts and the exposure outside would be required. The mammoth Saturn V rocket used by Apollo was already 35 stories tall and weighed as much as a battleship. To add additional tonnage in the form of a lead barrier completely surrounding the crew members would have made it impossible for the vehicle to get off the ground. That is why the Soviets, though more advanced, only sent an unmanned probe to the moon. The Apollo spacecraft's narrowest shielding was less than 1/8 of an inch of light aluminum.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
1/8 of an inch
crazy.
of light aluminum is going to protect you from these intense, deadly belts of radiation. You know,
But they
and-
didn't know about it, so, that's why they were safe.
That gets into an interesting point. So there's a quote of I think a NASA employee who said he was on the spot and he didn't know, maybe didn't know about when we knew about the radiation belts, and he said, well, we didn't know about them at the time. And so that gets played a lot, like, well, they say they didn't know about them, so we went through, and that's such a ridiculous argument. But Chris brought up the point that the Van Allen radiation belts were actually discovered in the 50s.
Right. So Van Allen was obviously the guy who just made this discovery through his research, and they had even sent up like a probe or satellite into close to this area to kind of judge they said it was dangerous and it was high risk, but he gave a talk to NASA to explain the risks.
Supposedly,
and supposedly this is, according to what NASA says, they thought it was worth the risk. And supposedly there are varying degrees of radiation levels in different parts of these belts, and that you can kind of plan a trajectory so that the shuttle will go through the least amount of these. But I think the interesting point is, so let's say they took this risk or whatever, right? And let's say they got up there.
Right.
You always hear, when you listen to this argument, that, well, they came back and then they had all the telemetry data was saying that their rad levels were low, like they didn't get exposed to that much, so they
weren't cool enough.
Their rad levels were low, man.
Not rad enough.
Yeah, but no. So, but to me, I think what's hilarious about that statement now, looking at all the evidence, is that the telemetry data that recorded their rad levels is missing. So how do we know?
That's so funny, dude.
You know,
I can't help but think of Corey Feldman just being like, "Our rad levels are low. Abort mission."
Corey Haim, we can't make it back. No, I think what's also fascinating is, this is crazy, John. So say that's true. Say it was worth the risk, and we're going to shoot for open holes we think might be in the Van Allen radiation belt, right? And risk the astronauts' lives, sure. Well, what's fascinating is we landed 2 missions, Apollo 11 and Apollo 12, on the moon in 1969. Then we landed another 2 missions in 1971. And then in 1972, we landed another 2 missions. So we went 6 times back and forth.
Right.
And we got real lucky with the Van Allen radiation belts. But the problem now is that it's such a dangerous thing that NASA is trying to develop technology to protect the astronauts to go back to the moon or Mars. And John, if you want to play another clip,
right?
Let's play a clip about that, because now this is a clip kind of describing the problems they're having with the Van Allen radiation belts.
This is from NASA, this clip?
Yeah. John, you want to play a clip? There might be a couple clips within this clip. It's called Van Allen LEO Problems, Low Earth Orbit.
Okay.
It's the main crucible test bed where we've been trying to grind out all the lessons that will eventually let us go to the moon.
The plan that NASA has is to build a rocket called SLS, which is a heavy lift rocket, and it will be able to launch the Orion capsule with humans on board to destinations beyond Earth orbit. Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go.
As we get further away from
weird.
Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts.
It's bizarre that you can say that out loud.
Dangerous radiation.
This is from NASA, yeah.
Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on Orion. Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
What?
Before we send people through these?
Yeah. Whoa.
So that's a little weird. And so that would,
I don't understand how like people like that though that seem like they don't seem like they're holding secrets. Like I don't think they are, but like have they thought about what they're saying? Like they had to have. They have to know that, right?
Yeah. Well, they would go back to what that Don Pettit astronaut said is the argument that we destroyed the technology.
The technology.
But I don't know if they would even argue that they had the technology to protect the astronauts. The argument is, like Chris said, well, it was worth the risk at the time because we were trying to beat
and
the
they
Soviets.
planned a trajectory that would take them through these thinner areas.
But we can't figure that
But
trajectory
that's the
out
thing.
now.
But that's the thing is that last video makes it sound like it's this terrible challenge of intense fear to get through these dangerous belts. And like, you can argue they're just trying to sound badass. So they're playing like this ominous music and like this dangerous area in space. But yeah, they're saying right there that like we need to solve these challenges before we can send people. And maybe it was just bad writing. They should have said before we can send people again. Right. But I don't know.
Yeah,
it just seems bizarre.
To this last point on the Van Allen radiation belt, if you want to play...
We've never gone back. We've never gone back. It was like we did it right the very first time, and then we've never been back.
Yeah,
I guess we did do it successfully a couple times, right?
But it was within,
it was in like a 4-year period.
Yeah, six times in a 4-year period. And 4 of those years, in those 3 years, in each of those 3 years, 1969, 1972, 1973, we sent up 2 successful missions there and back with men that landed.
Yeah, no deaths, no casualties in those except for Earth-based casualties. So, but now we have so much more advanced technology now. Right from the 60s, think about that. And
we've more
never sent people back
in the palm of our hand.
Right.
Like the average American has more technology now in the palm of their hand than they have. It probably, I mean,
oh yeah, no, it was.
That's exactly right, but it's probably pretty close.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Definitely more advanced technology.
Yeah,
and more powerful. Yeah. And so, but the only casualty, during the Apollo missions were Gus Grissom and I think another astronaut who. So Gus Grissom, I don't know if you've heard his name, John. This is a pretty interesting smoking gun. So Gus Grissom was one of the leading astronauts who was supposed to go to the moon for Apollo 11, but
before Neil, right?
Right, but they were doing a lot of tests and trying to, practice landing the lunar module, and he famously hung a lemon on the lunar module. Or it might have been on his desk.
As if to say, like, this is a lemon.
Is a lemon.
It's not going to work.
Yeah, a lemon is a term used like when a car's a lemon, it's not going to work. It's a crappy, shitty car. So he hung it on there, and he was very outspoken about how we're not going to get this. There's no way this is going to work. And then, interestingly, he burns alive in the test capsule on the ground in one of the tests being run because they had filled the module with pure oxygen and lit him up like a Christmas tree. Him and another astronaut, and he burned alive.
Could have been an accident, but I mean, it's just another thing that's kind of like makes you wonder.
NASA.
Yeah, like he obviously he had leaky lips.
NASA.
And he would have sunk the ship.
Leaky lips.
I think it's loose lips.
We had loose lips. He had loose lips, and it would have sunk the ship.
Sounds like a disorder.
Leaky lips, Larry.
But yeah, so he would have been the guy that would have told all. Like he was an honest guy.
That's the idea behind that.
They couldn't
theory.
scare him enough, and so they killed him. That's that theory,
Right.
But it is very suspicious.
Yeah, that's there's just like, with all these kind of conspiracy theories that we talk about, there's just all these like layers upon layers of reinforcing data where you're just like, yeah, well, that makes total sense. Like,
right.
Of course he died in an explosion in the,
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it's just there's a lot here to make it seem like we never went, for sure.
Right. And see, that's the thing is, that we talked about, like, correlation isn't causation. That's true. But at the same time, this is plenty of evidence to look at it. So to have all these different pieces in place and then say it's not worth looking at is crazy. That's the crazy thing to me.
Yeah.
Not looking at it.
And you know what the crazy thing about this, though? This lie is so massive that if people ever really did find out about it, it would cause hysteria.
Right.
Because if they're willing to lie about something like that, they're going to be lying about a lot of things.
Right, and we keep these things quiet, Well,
it's in the past.
Look at it was funny because in that documentary, If Anything Happened on the Way to the Moon, they just kind of offhandedly say, because this was before 2017, they offhandedly say, maybe the JFK release papers that are supposed to come out in 2017 will be postponed because even it's dated to be released in 2017. There is a clause where it says the president can review the other papers and decide whether or not they should again be withheld from the public. And what happens, we get some of the pages, but Trump keeps a bunch of the pages back.
Right, for whatever
reason. After being advised by the security.
National security concerns.
Right, exactly. So it's just kind of a
an
funny
assassination that happened in the 60s.
Another thing that would totally destroy the trust of the government with the American people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, I mean, we would have riots probably. I mean, people, it's such a story of American greatness too. Like it's what keeps us, like one of the greatest stories ever told,
Right.
Like, and to have that just pulled the rug out from that underneath of us, we already don't trust the government. There's a lot of people that just don't trust the news media,
politicians,
which are continuous liars. And so this would just solidify, and it'd be hard to trust them with anything after that,
right.
Which, they're already in that space of not trusting. So
right. And the argument that, like, I have a friend, I won't say his name, but we had an argument about this one time, and he said that he's like, I can believe that maybe we didn't get there the first time, but I'm pretty sure we did get there during one of those trips. And it's like, well, if that's true, and they faked it the first time, did they just get lucky when they faked it, that it's identical to all the other trips footage? Like the
scenes are the same.
Yeah, the lunar pods that land, or
it doesn't make sense. Yeah. That's the thing. Like he says that because he wants to believe that. Unfortunately,
right.
Like the evidence doesn't support.
I want
to
believe it. I think everybody wants to believe that we got there. Like no one wants to think that we never made it and that we've never been to the moon.
I really could care less at this point.
And now that you're down in the hole,
I just want the truth. I'm tired of all the lies.
Yeah. Well, I think
just want to know the truth about things.
A lot of people that are here listening, that's what they want, and so they're interested in this stuff because there might be another truth that they're not being told, and that's why you're in the hole.
Right.
I
think a lot of people think that it's such a ridiculous thought too because of how technologically advanced we are now, as far as like cell phones. I think we've come a long way in sort of the personal level of technology. Right. Our cars are in traffic still sucks. We haven't solved, especially if you live in a city.
Right.
But like technology, communication and stuff have just exploded in the last 15 years. So it's hard for people to think like that we never got to the moon because we could totally get there like now.
Right.
Even though we still can't get there as a manned
mission
situation.
Right. Not since 1972.
Yeah.
Or 60 years or something. Yeah. So John, what about the theory that, like, why would we go back?
Okay.
Like,
I was going to touch on that. I was thinking maybe we could go to another break before how do you feel about that, John?
Well, maybe answer John's question.
I don't like it, sir.
There's one more clip I wanted to play related to the Van Allen radiation belt.
Let's do one more clip and we'll take a break.
Okay, so this is called Funny Thing Radiation. This gives a good example of the dangers that we actually experienced when doing some tests beforehand.
Okay. Here we go.
In 1998, the space shuttle flew to an altitude of 350 miles, one of its highest altitudes ever, hundreds of miles below the beginning of a field of radiation that was so severe that the astronauts inside of their shielded spacecraft and inside of their shielded spacesuits saw flashes of light with their eyes shut that they described as shooting stars, due to radiation penetrating first the shuttle's shielding, then their spacesuit shielding, then their skulls, and finally the retinas of their closed eyes. As a result, CNN issued the following report, noting NASA's unpredicted surprise. The radiation belt surrounding Earth may be more dangerous for spacewalking astronauts than previously believed. Scientists say the phenomena known as the Van Allen belts can spawn killer electrons when the Earth's magnetic field changes. These electrons that are being studied could have an important effect, not only on satellites, which has happened in the past, but could also affect the astronauts by creating large doses of radiation that could influence their health. The electrons can penetrate through various materials, including spacesuits, and can pass through, in fact, the walls of the space station, and can create high charges deep inside of these objects.
Is that the Queen?
Yes, I like her accent.
I think it was.
She's working for
NASA.
So that's interesting. So I don't know if you caught. We were kind of talking about the beginning of the clip, but I think it was in '98 or something. The shuttle went up to do experiments and testing, and that's what they experienced. Not, what they said, like 100 miles still away, or so many thousand miles from the belts, and they're getting this radiation even then, not even near the belts.
Right.
It's an issue we're talking about now, but in the 70s,
yet
we just winged it.
The men in the Apollo missions, the 6 missions, never experienced anything like that, and they all went through.
Yeah, no radiation problems.
But the first time in recent history that we go up there, they're having these effects where they're seeing lights and getting radiation issues.
Right.
Interesting. Oh yeah, let's go. You guys up for a break?
NASA.
Let's do a little break. Joe Rogan's ready for a break.
All right, Joe. Joe, what do you think?
NASA.
I agree.
He's ready.
He's ready for a break.
Boner hat.
And we're back. We're back.
All right, did you want to play that one more clip, that Don Pettit, who we played before on the show?
Yeah,
right?
This guy's interesting. I find him very, very sincere and genuine as a human, just from what I've looked into about him. He really seems like he's been fascinated by space his whole life. And he seems a little bit like an eccentric character.
On the spectrum a
But
little?
he does seem, but he seems like he wouldn't be, involved in any sort of cover-ups, which is kind of interesting because he's been to the space station several times.
Right.
So that would be a little bit against your flat Earth theory.
Yes, that would
journey.
definitely be. Yes, Don. I'd have to talk to Don Pettit myself.
Yeah, but anyway, so this is a clip. What's funny about that?
Oh, I said
We're laughing at Jeremy's
I said I'd have
suspicion
to, I said I have to talk. I'd like to talk to him about that because that is because I do.
When he goes to the space station, they have a lens to make the Earth look curved so that he doesn't spoil it.
There you go.
He's too genuine of a person.
He does seem genuine. I'll give him that.
They have a fisheye lens on the.
He seems like a sweet
space
guy.
station.
But let's play his clip.
He does.
Play it up.
Okay.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
Oh, okay. So the excuse is they destroyed the technology, and it's a painful process to build up technology from the 70s.
Right.
Like, that just doesn't fly, dude. That just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's the only time in the history of the world where we've gone backwards in technology where we can't. I mean, I guess granted, it's pretty intense technology that would have to get there, obviously, because for all the reasons we just detailed. But, it just doesn't logically make sense that would happen that way.
Yeah, and you know what else doesn't logically make sense to me about that whole argument of, you hear a lot of people talking, and the direction seems to be, let's go to Mars, manned mission to Mars, right? Forget the moon, we're going to Mars. And it would be so much easier, if you think about it logistically, to fake that. So say we couldn't get to the moon, but we need to show that we're going somewhere. We go to Mars where people can't see it with their telescopes. People can't see the surface. They can't, send radio signals up there or measure it. It'd be a lot harder to track that. It would be a lot harder to prove if there was a fake of Mars. Everything you're getting is strictly from NASA, and there's no amateur observation.
We still have to go through the radiation belt, don't we?
Exactly.
To get there.
Oh yeah, anywhere we want to go.
I mean, it's way farther away.
Right. So why wouldn't you use the moon? Why wouldn't you use the moon as a launch pad? That's a huge.
That goes to what the question John asked before the break. So what's the?
There's a lot of reasons. Go ahead, though, Chris.
Yeah. What's the? People bring up all the time, like, well, we never went back because why?
It's stupid. It's just a stupid thing up in the sky. Why would we go back there?
Right. Like, we did it once. We planted our flag. We got in. We got out. We accomplished it. It was like hunting a line, or that kind of bullshit line. But there are so many reasons why it would be good to start building bases on the moon.
Dude. Yeah.
Research, not just research, but you got space dominance.
There's all kinds of minerals up there that we don't know about.
Yeah.
It's literally in space. Like science-wise, I would think it would be like a gold mine of research and
absolutely,
and potential new minerals that we don't understand. And it's not the way that conquering things works. Everything we've ever been to, we go there and we keep going there. It's not like, especially in a place that's so foreign and
uncharted,
uncharted. Yeah. Like it's never, humans have never been like that. Even in places like Antarctica and, what's the mountains that people continuously climb?
Everest?
There's like nothing up there. Everest. Yeah. It's like people do that just because they want to go to places that haven't been explored yet. It's hard to get there, and it's like, it doesn't make sense that it's just this, rock in the sky and there's no real, it could be used as a launching pad to get to Mars. We could start building civilization up there. Like
all the scientific research, the stabilization you'd have on the moon versus floating, in the space station, and you can actually have housing situations. Well, and think of how expensive it is for us to shoot rockets up. It's extremely expensive to shoot rockets to break Earth orbit. So if we can have a base where we can build rockets on the moon and not have to worry about breaking orbit, you can go so much farther, so much faster, and so much cheaper to different places.
Guess what, guys? We never went to the moon.
It has been decreed.
Jeremy, what do you think?
Dumb stupid.
I thought so.
That was me. He can control your thoughts now with his. Yeah, we can go 6 times in a 4-year period. 100% success rate as far as no casualties. Yeah, and so we do that in 6 years. We go 4 times, but in 60 years or whatever it is, we can't go once. It's just insane.
It's a sad state of affairs.
It is sad. I feel like the saddest story, and this is to me, again, watching that clip, is the personal stories of poor Neil and Buzz and Mike. It seems to have messed him up a little bit. Yeah. If there's a clip I'd like to play. Yeah, this will be a good wrap-up clip. Yeah, this is this is Neil Armstrong. So he gave less than a handful of public speaking engagements since his life history after the moon landing. Obviously,
makes sense.
Makes sense, right? Because I don't think he was comfortable if he was lying. I don't think he's comfortable lying. He seems like he had a real hard time with it if he did lie. I don't think he's just a shy guy. This is a problem that he has with this. So this is pointed to as a clue of kind of giving a hint at maybe we didn't actually go. There's some obfuscation of the truth. Yeah, I think this was at the 50th year anniversary or something like that. And or maybe 30. I'm not sure. I think it might be 30. But he he was giving a speech to the next generation of supposed astronauts. It's called Truth's Protective Layers.
Oh, interesting title. TPL.
To you, we say we have only completed a beginning. We leave you much that is undone. There are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers.
So that's kind of interesting. One of truth's protective layers. And he kind of gives this look when he says it. And he looks over after he says it.
What does he say? The last line, he says,
there are great breakthroughs to be made for those that can remove one of truth's protective layers.
Truth's protective layer. I'm trying to figure out what that means.
That means that's the thing. Well, that's the thing is that statement is so I had the word on my tip of my tongue. Cryptic. It's a cryptic.
Telemetry?
It's a cryptic statement when he says one of truth's. It's intentionally cryptic, And then right after he says it, he looks over to the side. Did my handlers did they catch that kind of message in there?
Did I do that?
Yeah. So I don't know. It's poor Neil.
It's
That's all I gotta say. But yeah, I think anyone. Go to our website and definitely watch that clip.
If you get more into the astronaut stuff, which we really didn't touch on too much, but there's a lot more video evidence of strange behavior and right?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm not just saying that.
No. You're right. There is just so much bizarre video evidence, not only of problems on the moon and stuff, but the actual astronauts trying to talk about their experience coming back. There was that great Buzz Aldrin clip that I don't think we sent you, but he's older now, and a kid asks him, why haven't we gone back to the moon? And he's like, oh, that's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. And he says, he kind of pauses, maybe getting a little bit into the dementia a little bit. And he says, the simple answer is we didn't go, and I would have liked to have gone. And then he continues, and then it sounds like he's kind of rephrasing it to suggest that what he's talking about is we didn't go back again. Right. But it could have just been a mind slip, or it could have been just a bad way to put it.
Slip.
Yeah. But it could have also been that he was accidentally kind of losing it and telling the truth, and then but that's totally subjective.
Yeah, it's a subjective one. But absolutely, check out those documentaries. A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon is really an interesting watch. And then the other one, Did We Go? I didn't watch all of it, but the parts I watched seemed interesting.
Did you want me to play that last clip, Jeremy, the false flag?
Oh yeah, if you want to. This is not directly related to the moon landing, but it is Wernher von Braun who got us to the moon, allegedly. His spokesperson towards the end of his life, last few years of his life, her name's Dr. Carol Rosen, and anyone who's looked into this stuff has probably heard this clip. I edited it down a little bit to be more concise, but it's her basically. Well, I'll let you play the clip and then we can talk about it after.
Okay, here we go.
In 1974, I was introduced to the late Dr. Wernher von Braun in the U.S., the father of rocketry. In my first meeting with him, during that first 3.5 hours, he said to me, "Carol, you will stop the weaponization of space. There is a lie being told to everyone that the weaponization of space is now first being based upon the evil empire, the Russians. There are many enemies," he said, "against whom we're going to build this space-based weapon system. The first of whom was the Russians, which was existing at that time. Then there would be terrorists. Then there would be third world countries. Now we call them rogue nations or nations of concern. Then there would be asteroids." And then he would repeat to me over and over, "And the last card, the last card, the last card would be the extraterrestrial threat."
Yeah, so that kind of plays
that
plays into the whole Project Bluebeam alien invasion false flag. Another way. So their argument there was von Braun was saying we can't weaponize space because we're going to keep getting these excuses to do that, but it shouldn't be done. But it was interesting that he brought up that point that there was going to be this chick
who knew him, or was supposed to be
this was his
work associate or something?
It was his spokesperson for the final years of his life, the last few years. I think before that she was like a school teacher or something.
Yeah.
But
and
I'm
he was
sure
a Nazi though. I don't know.
Yeah, he was brought over Project Paperclip, which I'm sure most people have heard of that.
We talked about that
in the last episode. But yeah, interesting because we talk a lot about aliens and the slow disclosure and the debate between how much of with Bob Lazar in the last episode, how much of that technology was extraterrestrial versus advanced military that helps to build this concept of an alien race that could invade, and at that point we can group the planet together in this global empire that can be controlled.
I still think you need some sort of extraterrestrial or interdimensional technology, not ours, to reverse engineer to create the UFOs that we see in the sky today.
Right. No. And we argue about where they come from, if it's space or other dimensional. But I just thought that was an interesting point because we talk about that a lot.
I think the gray aliens. I think they are us in the future. And I think that we just
you're a time travel guy.
After we just Netflix and chilled for too long, and we lose all of our muscle mass and all of our melanin,
we get little beer bellies because we're just drinking beer and watching TV.
You're never out in the sun. You just order Domino's to get your food.
You turn into an alien gray.
You got these giant eyes because you're in the dark all the time.
I think if you drink too much taco sauce, you turn into a gray.
If you do what?
If you drink too much taco sauce from the bottle.
No, absolutely. Then you turn into a chupacabra.
Yes, that's a great theory.
Okay. Chris, you want to do the thank yous?
Yeah, let's. We got some people to thank. We did the Patreon episode, and again, thank you.
We did the Patreon, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Abby and Rachel, again so much for that. I wanted to mention some people who wrote in, read some mail we got.
So we're not going to touch on the Kubrick releasing his final film 30 years from the day of the moon landing.
Oh yeah, so I don't think we should go into it today because I want to do an episode on Kubrick films in general and the crazy stuff that he seems to implant.
I'm getting cold in my room.
Cool, I'm cold
too.
John.
Yes.
Anyway, the things that he kind of implants in his films. That's a whole other episode. But yeah, moon landing references for sure, and The Shining specifically. Really fascinating topic there.
Yeah, we will do an episode on Kubrick.
I mean, that is a whole show in itself. It's pretty fascinating. That guy is definitely was in the know of some pretty intense things during his life.
And we'll do that. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe not next, maybe next, but definitely soon.
Okay, so we got some messages from people who like the show, Chris.
Yeah, and if we missed anybody, feel free to write us back. Sometimes we can't catch everybody. So this first message is from Jay. He says, "Hey boys, Jay the time traveler here. Was wondering if you could do a show on the moon." That's funny because that's what we were planning to do. We did. I hope you liked it, Jay. On the moon, or a show where you talk about movies that got you into the whole conspiracy theories thing. Anyway, keep up the good work.
That would be a good one to do, our best, our favoritist documentaries, like we talked about Zeitgeist and the early stuff that got us going, and then maybe some of the stuff that's out now that's really good. We could play clips.
Yeah, John, what was the Zeitgeist for you that really got you into stuff? Probably, I think that was mine.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah, I think that was the first movie that made me realize that something was wrong. I knew it. Like I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know how to put it in words. I didn't know what it was, and that was kind of when I started talking about the Federal Reserve and you know a lot of the war machine. I was like, oh yeah, that makes
9/11.
sense.
Yeah.
9/11.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of
There's a few really good documentaries
we should do
out
an
there.
episode on 9/11, but gosh, that's just like
we
that's
will.
just the whole thing.
We will do that.
The whole thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any.
Flagged by Hillary.
I'm trying to think if there's any like in really good documentaries that stand out to me as being kind of like ones that opened up my mind. Well, we'll do an episode on that. That'd be cool to do an episode on recommendations.
We'll do an episode sometime.
Okay. Okay. This is from Don S. Don's my guy. Are you gonna read it? Oh, I was just saying I like Don. Oh, well then read it. Well, Don S says, "Hey, I'm ready for the full out flat Earth episode."
Oh, that's why you like Don.
We're going to do that shortly. Actually, it'd be good to follow up with the stuff we've been doing with space. I was amazed about 3 years ago when I heard people talking about flat Earth and thought to myself, I thought we already solved that topic. A lot of people did, Don. The Earth is a globe, duh. Today, I lean more towards the Earth being flat after listening to Mark Sargent, Rob Skiba, and reading about the topic. So I'm ready. Bring on the episode. Love the show, by the way.
Thanks, Don.
Yeah, Don, I'm with you. I think we should do an episode on that because whether you're Earth-shaped agnostic or you're a globe kid or you're an Earth turf dude, it's a fascinating topic, and I really do think it needs more discussion.
I think it's fun.
Jeremy, did you know that a lot of the math that is involved in the curve is 666? Have you ran into that stuff?
No, I haven't heard that connection.
Owen Benjamin was talking about it. He said it was one of the things that was freaking him out the most.
Oh, weird. I'll have to look into that. That's interesting. Huh.
Yeah. I mean, apparently, like a lot of the curve math, and I didn't really understand because I haven't looked into it. But there's a lot of 666.
It's
curve.
Weird. Yeah, it's weird how we talked about the CERN logo. It's weird how that number does seem to come up everywhere. Even my girlfriend Jess was. We were at Taco Bell and she was telling me that she was pointing out the Eye of Horus in Taco Bell and the 666 in the, I think it was in the logo or some decor.
Dude,
Taco Bell is deep.
Dude.
What are you talking about? Deep in the dark,
dude.
But their dollar menu is.
Dude, we need to do an episode. We need to do an episode on. We need to do an episode with like symbolism, like Michael Tessarian stuff.
That would be awesome.
Is fascinating.
Yeah, sigils and symbolism and corporate logos, all that stuff.
Are we just talking to ourselves now? I think we forgot we were doing a show.
Oh yeah. Well, we're going off of the write-ins, so
that's true.
Oh yeah, we will.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So Don, thank you. We're definitely going to be covering that soon. I'm sure you've heard of Eric DeBay. He's kind of I think he's. Although he doesn't have a lot of fans within the community because he's kind of a rebel rouser. He calls a lot of other people shills frequently, but he's got, I think, the best knowledge on the best way of articulating the flat Earth argument. So I like him a lot. But yeah, we'll definitely be talking about that in an upcoming episode. So thank you, Don. Awesome write-in.
Cool. Yeah. I just wanted to mention just a shout out to people who left some Facebook recommendations because those really help too on Facebook.
Yeah. If you've made it this far in the episode,
you're a fan.
Go take a minute to rate the show, leave a comment. Especially ratings, definitely on iTunes can help. So just take 5 minutes. You've listened to us talk for 2 hours.
Yeah,
help us out.
All right, so Chelsea L, thank you. Chris A, Ben S, Nikki M, Paula D, Marcia M, and anybody that I missed that's given some recommendations or that's done in the past.
Did those just happen?
Some of them happened this past week, and some of them are a little older, I think.
Okay.
But
well, thanks, guys.
Appreciate that, guys.
Thank you so much. We don't have an air horn, do we?
Appreciate the... I'll put one in after.
Okay, good. Okay.
Oh, good air horn.
Yes.
Way to go.
That was great. Thanks, guys.
Also, a couple fans had birthdays, I think, recently.
Aww.
I think.
Happy birthday. I feel like we're like Domino's sending like birthday gift certificates.
Yeah, let's not go over the
Sign
board
up with yours. Happy birthday, guys.
Anyone have a dental appointment we need to cover?
We will just give reminders in our episode of people's scheduled appointments.
Anybody we missed? Oh, and again, I want to say one more thanks to Marcia M for sending in those news articles. If you guys want to send in news articles, that really helps. Or she sent a whole litany of topic ideas.
Great topic ideas.
Where hopefully we get to all of them eventually. But anything you guys want us to hear us talk about, we love to hear your recommendations. And again, leave comments, feedback.
Chris the Promiser.
That's Jeremy.
Chris can join me.
I know, but I might as well call you that too.
Let's all promise.
Hopefully get to every topic that every person ever sends.
Well, hopefully we do this until we die. So we should hit everything at some point.
Amen.
We'll do this until we get hitmanned.
Until we get knocked off.
All right, guys. Well, thank you. Hope you guys enjoyed episode 16.
Yeah, again, check out our website. You can find links to these documentaries on YouTube.
And become a patron. For less than a cup of coffee a month, you can support Jeremy and help him pay for his bills.
Or just keep the show going.
Yes.
Because that's all it's doing right now.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Tune in next time.
Unbelievable.
Get it?